Our movie begins with Eddie at his home hearing someone banging on the door trying to break in and kill him. In response, Eddie goes out onto the balcony and considers jumping to avoid being caught. At this point, Eddie starts narrating how he ended up in this situation. He explains that not long ago he was an addict working as a writer despite not knowing much about writing. Days go by and Eddie spends his time in front of his laptop struggling to write a single word for the book he's contracted to write, but he fails. One day, he meets up with his old girlfriend Lindy, who tries to help him get back to writing. When Eddie proposes to her, she turns him down because he had married Melissa, his college mate, and their relationship had failed. Lindy tells him she's now working as an editor and has to get back to work. A little later, Eddie runs into Vernon, his ex-wife's brother. Eddie is annoyed by the encounter because Vernon constantly mocks him. They go out for drinks, and when Eddie mentions he hasn't started on his book yet, Vernon offers to help by introducing him to a new drug not yet on the market. He explains that a typical person uses only 20% of their brain, but this pill will allow Eddie to use his entire brain. Initially, Eddie refuses to take the pill, but Vernon convinces him, revealing that it costs $800. Eddie keeps the pill. Before leaving, Vernon gives Eddie his card in case he needs to contact him. Eddie returns home and, out of curiosity, decides to take the pill. At that moment, he meets his neighbor and the landlord's wife, who demands he pay the rent. Eddie feels anxious and doesn't know what to say. Just then, the pill kicks in and Eddie's brain starts functioning at full capacity. He notices everything around him, telling the woman that he knows she doesn't like him and that she is in law school because he saw a law book in her bag. He recalls seeing that book 12 years ago in college and is amazed at how he remembered something like that. After that, Eddie starts talking to the woman about the book and its author, sharing a lot of information. Then, he enters his messy house and is shocked at how he has been living. He quickly cleans and organizes it. Next, he sits at his desk and begins writing his book, with ideas flowing rapidly. Eddie is thrilled with the effect of the drug. The next day, Eddie wakes up back to his normal self and can't do anything. He takes what he wrote to the editor-in-chief at the publishing house, who is amazed at how much he managed to write. He asks her to read at least 3 pages, and if she doesn't like it, he'll return the advance payment he received. Eddie returns home to find a message from the editor-in-chief asking him to call her urgently. She tells him she read 40 pages and is eager to continue because she's so impressed with his writing. She's amazed at how he managed to do it, but before Eddie calls her, he goes to Vernon's place and finds him badly beaten and bruised. Eddie asks for another pill, but Vernon warns him that the drug is still experimental and could be dangerous. Vernon agrees to give Eddie another pill in exchange for picking up his suit from the cleaners and breakfast because he's too sick to go out. Eddie quickly runs to get them, but when he returns, he finds Vernon's door open and discovers that someone has killed Vernon and made a miss to the place. Eddie is shocked and calls the crime to the police. He suspects that whoever did this to Vernon is also looking for the drug. Eddie starts searching for the drug himself and eventually finds it inside the oven, along with money and the names of people Vernon had given the pills to. He takes everything. The police arrive and question him, but then they let him go. From that moment, Eddie's life changes completely. He starts taking a pill daily, becomes more attentive to his appearance, and finishes his book in just 4 days. He learns many new things and makes new friends. Eddie decides he needs to make more money, so he enters the stock market and manages to multiply his funds. However, he needs even more money as the banks aren't meeting his needs. He turns to a loan shark who lends money at high interest rates and borrows $100,000, which he invests in the stock market. Eddie then works at a trading company, growing his wealth to $2 million, which brings him fame and many job offers, and the news starts talking about him. Eddie fixes things with Lindy and they go out for dinner. One day, while walking with her, he notices a strange man following him, making him anxious. Another day, Eddie meets Carl, the top figure in the stock market. Eddie reveals that his success is due to a special treatment he's receiving. Carl, impressed, tells Eddie that he's unlike anyone he's ever met and gives him a stack of papers on energy companies, asking him to review them. As soon as they arrive at the building, Eddie finishes analyzing the papers and tells Carl that it would be impossible to dominate the energy market without controlling these two companies. Carl is impressed and agrees to meet again the next day. Eddie gets out of the car proud of himself, but suddenly finds himself having lost track of time and walked a long distance without realizing it, ending up in the city center. His mind starts skipping longer periods with few memories of the details. The next day, Eddie decides not to take the pill because of its negative effects, but he finds it difficult to work and everything seems challenging. He calls his assistant to say he can't make it to the meeting with Carl because he's feeling unwell. His assistant insists he needs to pull himself together and attend the meeting, considering it a test. Eddie reluctantly agrees and goes to see Carl without taking the pill. He is unfocused and says strange things. During this time, he sees a news report about a girl who was murdered in the hotel the previous night and realizes he had seen her, which makes him anxious. He abruptly leaves the meeting, suspecting he might have killed her without realizing it. Eddie rushes home and finds a message from Melissa warning him not to take any pills Vernon gave him because they're extremely dangerous. He calls her and arranges to meet. He then calls all the people Vernon had given the pills, only to find out they're either sick or dead. The last person he calls turns out to be the man who has been following him and is now sitting next to him. Eddie runs away with the man in pursuit but manages to escape by getting into a taxi. He meets Melissa and notices she looks very unwell due to having stopped taking the pills, losing her focus and falling ill. She tells Eddie that those who stop taking the pills either get sick or die. She advises him to resume taking the pills, but to gradually reduce the dosage until he can stop completely. After that, she leaves. Eddie then meets with the loan shark he borrowed money from and gets into an argument because he hasn't repaid the loan yet. The man sees a pill fall from Eddie's hand, takes it, and tries it himself. Eddie goes to the bank to withdraw money to repay the loan shark and is left alone. Eddie then goes to Lindy's workplace feeling unwell and tells her everything, asking her to get the pills he had hidden at her place. Lindy takes the pills, but she notices that she is followed by the man who was tailing Eddie. She manages to escape from him by asking the help of a young man, but unfortunately, the man kills the young man. In desperation, Lindy calls Eddie, who advises her to take a pill and promises to guide her out of the situation within 30 seconds. The pill kicks in and she manages to escape. She brings the pills to Eddie, who takes one and returns to his former sharp state. He promises Lindy he will quit taking the pills once he secures his position, but she doesn't believe him and leaves. At this point, the loan shark returns to Eddie demanding the pills, so Eddie gives them to him to get rid of him. Days pass and Eddie resumes working with Carl, becoming the leader of the largest organization in the group. He tries to maintain his dosage and arranges with a doctor in a lab to replicate the pills exactly. One day, a detective summons Eddie to the police station to question him about the girl's murder, but Eddie was quickly released as his fingerprints in the girl's room have been wiped clean and there was no evidence linking him to the crime. Eddie returns to the hotel and finds his room in a mess, searched by intruders. He decides to move to a new place, a safer place with surveillance cameras and reinforced doors to ensure no one can break in. Eddie meets the loan shark again, who threatens to reveal Eddie's involvement in the girl's murder unless he gets more pills. The next day, at a scheduled meeting, they're waiting for Atwood, the owner of an energy company, to sign over his company to Carl. Instead, Atwood's wife arrives and informs them that he is in the hospital and will sign the contract once he recovers. Eddie realizes that Atwood's driver is the man who has been following him, understanding why the driver has been chasing him. Eddie was summoned again to appeal to a witness. Luckily for him, the witness couldn't recognize him. He got bailed with the help of his powerful attorney. Eddie then goes to Carl and finds out that news reports are saying Carl's deal with Atwood is on hold until Atwood recovers. Carl suspects Eddie leaked the information. Eddie tries to take a pill but discovers it is missing from his jacket pocket. He returns home feeling ill and realizes the lawyer who helped him is also Atwood's lawyer and must have stolen the pills. The loan shark arrives demanding the pills by force. Eddie decides to commit suicide, but he changes his mind and searches the house for any remaining pills, finding none. The loan shark breaks in and Eddie kills him, drinking his blood to ingest the effects of the pill. Eddie then takes down the loan shark's men, killing them all. It is revealed that Atwood died in the hospital. Eddie confronts Atwood's driver, learning that the lawyer took the pills, yet Atwood still died. Eddie goes to the lawyer's office, finds him dead, and retrieves the pills from his safe. 6 months later, Eddie nominates himself in the elections of New York Senate, and his book is finally published. He meets the head of a major pharmaceutical company and discovers it's Carl. Carl threatens Eddie, saying he knows about his pill use and that Eddie owns his success to them. Carl also reveals he bought the entire pharmaceutical company and could stop the pill's production unless Eddie helps him. Eddie tells Carl that he has weaned himself off the pills and is now operating on his own capabilities. He also knows an incriminating tale about Carl that could end him up in prison, making Carl powerless over him. Eddie feels he has finally gained his freedom. And that's it. If you like this recap, hit like, share, and subscribe to our channel to keep seeing content like this one. If you have any requests or thoughts, drop them below in the comment section and we will see you at the next one. Peace out.